Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the difference between rep counted sets and time sets. I'm just going to give you 5 quick tips, ideas on how you would utilize that information, sort of implemented when you're actually training your client. So let's go ahead and get started. The idea is that you can use one or the other, of course, but there is a difference between or why you would use reps when you're doing your sets, for instance, or why you would use a timed set. And when I say time set, it's literally just a set of bench presses or dumbbell curls or squats, whatever the case is, for 30 seconds. And remember, you're training clients and you're training one-on-one and you're training small group, whatever the scenario is, you have to make a decision as to how much time you're going to spend in each set. This is where the concept of time under tension comes in. Look, it's a very interesting concept, but at the end of the day, there's a couple of other variables that you need to keep in mind when you're actually training people. Remember, we're training the average apparently healthy person, and we're training them either one-on-one, right, where you have direct contact with this one individual, or you're doing small group training. The recommendation is maybe up to 4 or 5 individuals. So for sure, it's 2 or more folks that you're training. So you can make a decision when you're doing your particular exercises as to whether or not you're going to tell your folks, look, let's go ahead and let's get 10 reps. Let's get 12 reps, right? A rep counted set. Nothing wrong with that. We've been doing that for literally decades. That would basically be considered the standard way we would conduct a set with our clients, right? Or the other way is, as I do with a stopwatch, I literally have a stopwatch. And I'll say to my clients, again, this is a small group scenario. Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do dumbbell curls just as a, for instance, we're going to do it for 45 seconds or a minute. Just a little tip real quick. Don't tell people you're doing a 2-minute set. That's going to mess up their brain. Okay. So normally I'll say 30 seconds, 45 seconds. And the reason I time it out for 30, 45 seconds, maybe even a minute, is because I know that the amount of time it takes to complete roughly 12, 15, 20 reps is going to be within that time frame. But keep in mind, that's one of the reasons why we make the distinction between rep counting and time sets, is because everybody does their repetitions at a different speed. Even if I try to control the amount of movement and the pattern of movement that clients are going through, it can be a little challenging logistically. So here's the question. Time sets, what are they? Basically, I'm telling my clients, we're going to go ahead and do this for 30 seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. Click, got my stopwatch. And as they're going through the exercise, you can be telling them, guiding them, giving them corrections. Everybody lift up your rib cage, smooth and controlled, whatever your cueing scenario is going to be. And I'm talking specifically right now about small group training. Don't get me wrong. In a one-on-one scenario, I can train an individual one-on-one and I can do a timed set. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But one of the reasons why in one-on-one training, you're going to generally do repetitions is because you do have the ability to literally work with this individual second to second, minute to minute. So time sets, as you can already imagine, are very helpful, very effective. And I'm talking logistically for you as the trainer when you're doing small group training. Okay. So that's a little hint to the next slide that when we talk about the little tips that we want to go over. The other thing, of course, is the rep counting. When do you want to do rep counting? Right? That is the standard way we generally do sets. Right? So how many reps are you going to do in a particular set? And so the research, the data, you read the plethora of information out there. It's going to give you, you're probably going to see rep schemes that tell you for power, do this. For hypertrophy, do this, right? For muscular endurance, do this. The information is absolutely correct. There's no doubt that if I'm doing 3 repetitions, right, a rep counted set, that depending on the tension development within the muscle, yeah, I'm going to increase overall type 2 fiber recruitment. So I'm going to develop more strength and i.e. potentially power. If I do 20 reps, just as a for instance, I'm going to have to use a resistance or load that is significantly less than a 3-rep set. And therefore, I'm probably going to engage or keep engaged more the type 1, perhaps even the type 2A muscle fibers. Not, don't know because everybody's different. But the idea is that because of the increased level of or increased amount of time, the level of load, resistance, tension buildup in the muscle is going to be different than if I'm doing very heavy resistance, heavy loads for fewer repetitions. Okay, that's a whole nother can of worms that you can look up and get information about. So time sets, rep counting. Now that's kind of the science behind it. So I can, or at least logistically, the science behind it. Time sets where I'm actually looking 30 seconds, 45 seconds, rep counting, right, for 8 reps, 10 reps, whatever the rep counting is. Or, and this is where I kind of want to help you to change your thinking about the either or. How about both? How about both during an actual set? Is there anything wrong with doing a time set or starting out with telling your clients we're going to do 6 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps, putting the weight down, taking a 3-second, picking it up, and then quote, repping out. In other words, doing it for time. We're going to continue for another 10, 15, even 20 seconds. Well, no, the repetition police are not going to come after you if you do both of them combined. Generally, what we say is that it's not an either or scenario. So again, keep in mind, you can do time sets, you can do rep counting sets, or you can do both. And my recommendation is that you do both. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun for clients to be given timed sets and then to switch over. Well, and when I say fun, I think you know what I mean. It's a little bit more interesting and engaging. Now, I use the term fun because I like to do different things when I'm training people, and it gets them engaged and generally motivated and encouraged. So I'll change things up, obviously change things up quite often from rep counting to time sets. And depending on the exercise itself, I might always do timed sets. With certain exercises, I might always do rep counting sets, or I may combine the two. But I get off the subject here. It's not either or, and that's what I want you to keep in mind. Here's some tips that I want you to think about. First, use time sets, 30 seconds and higher. And that's why I say this. I generally will not do any less than about 30 seconds. And what I want you to do is think about it this way. How many reps, or how long does it, if you got 30 seconds, and I'm speaking out loud, it takes 30 seconds to do how many reps of a bicep curl? Okay, so start from there. How many reps do you think you can do in 30 seconds? Well, now, wait a minute. It depends on the speed of the movement, doesn't it? So if I have a 30-second set, that gives me variability in the speed of movement versus just telling somebody to do 12 repetitions. This all goes back to this concept of, how much tension can you develop inside of a muscle with the amount of load that you're using and the speed of the movement, because those variables affect total tension development levels inside the muscle. So I use time sets to control the start and the finish times. Now, again, you'll notice I got up there small group training, for instance. So if I've got 4 people that I'm training, I've got 25 minutes just in the scenario, for instance, that we use at Body Design University, 25 minutes to get through your resistance training. So if I've got 3 people, logistically, I got to get done in 25 minutes, just as an example. Well, I've got to make sure everybody starts and finishes at the same time. Remember, logistically now, timing the set actually becomes of benefit just to my standard business modeling. Okay, so even if a person in 30 seconds only gets 12 reps and another client gets 14 because they did it a little bit slower or faster, whatever the case is. Does it make that much of a difference metabolically or neuromuscular wise? No, it's insignificant. So use time sets when you got small group training scenario. Once again, it's not either or, but I tend to use timing, particularly when I'm training small groups of 3, 4. And by the way, when you get up to 5 people, it's like herding cats. You got to get everybody starting and finishing, at the same time. So that's number one. Really good thing to keep in mind. Number 2 is count reps when using heavier resistance. So you could, for instance, say, I'm not saying do this, but you could technically tell your group of clients that are doing heavy dumbbell presses, okay, guys, we're going to do 10 seconds. Okay, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I might be able to get 3 or 4 reps in 10 seconds. Probably not going to do that. When I'm using heavier resistance, the general understanding is that the total amount of time under tension, or the total number of repetitions that I can perform, is going to be less, right? So if I'm doing 6 reps versus 20 reps, obviously, there's going to be a time difference. Time under tension is going to be different. And so generally what I try to do is if I'm doing less than 10 reps or 8 reps, I'm probably going to tell my clients, okay, folks, let's go ahead and get 8 reps on this. Let's go ahead and get 6 reps. Perhaps we'll do some drop sets or even a superset, depending on what my program design looks like for that day. So look at counting reps more than likely during the heavier type of training that you're doing. And remember, I guess I should put that word heavier in quotes, simply talking about the level of resistance that a particular individual is using. Remember, these are just tips that I want you to consider when you're going through your workout with your clients. Number 3, use time sets when focusing on heart rate. I wish I had a whole lot more time to go over this. Maybe we'll do this on another video. One of the things that is really important is monitoring an individual's heart rate when you're doing high intensity interval training. So if you're trying to work through high muscle endurance type training, which is not a bad idea, you're focusing on heart rate. Well, it's a lot easier to time somebody, right? And look at their heart rate simultaneously, because remember, when I time somebody, I can always monitor the amount of time they're going through this particular set, and I can make modifications. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you the two contrasting examples. We're going to do squats. Okay. Squats in general, if you do let's just say you do a 4-second negative, 2-second pause, 3 seconds on the positive. How many seconds did that take? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds per set if you were to do it smooth and controlled. Now, I can do squats a whole lot faster than that, right? I can do 2 seconds down, no pause at the bottom, 2 seconds up. That's a 4-second repetition. So I can make these modifications. The general understanding is that if I'm doing the movement a little bit faster, in other words, the movement is faster, I'm probably using less weight. Now, in general, if I'm using less weight, I'm probably doing more repetitions. If I'm doing more repetitions, more than likely I'm training endurance, which means now I'm definitely going to be looking at heart rate. And as I'm showing you, I'm talking about like a heart rate monitor where I can actually monitor an individual up on a screen, or they can monitor it themselves. If I do just reps and I say 6 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps, well, they may or may not get their heart rate up into the range, say 70 to 80% or higher, that I want to get my client into. Remember, when I'm doing heart rate specific type training or high intensity interval training, I want people's heart rates to go up, and then I'll bring them back down. But generally, there is a specific or goal range of heart rates I want to get them to. If I put a specified number of reps, right, a rep counted set, I may or may not get there. But with a timed set, let's just say, I say, okay, folks, we're going to do squats for 45 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever the case is. As they proceed through the exercise, I can monitor their heart rate. If it takes them longer to get through or get to those heart rate levels I want to see them at, I can just continue to extend the set time-wise. Even though I said 30 seconds, the reality is I'm trying to get them to a heart rate that's much more appropriate for the type of training program or the program designed for that particular day that I want to get them to. So I always use time sets if I'm looking at heart rate and working on endurance training, only because, again, time sets are a lot easier to modify. I know what you're saying. Well, Doug, if I told the client 8 repetitions, I can just tell them to keep going. Yes, I know that's the case. Here's the reality is you got to deal with people's mental condition also. If you tell them 8 reps and they get to 8 reps, heart rate's not as high as you want it to get, and you tell them, okay, 5 more, that can have a interesting effect on a person's brain. And I'm just telling you this because I've done it 1,000 times if I've done it once. And you know this, when you're training people, you tell them to keep doing more repetitions, that has an effect on their psyche. It really does. So I don't recommend you do that. If you're trying to get heart rates to really, get up there in the 70, 75, 80% of max rate, I just go, look, folks, we're going to do this for 30 seconds. We're going to do it for 45 seconds. The reality is they don't know what the timing is, right? But it gives them something to focus on. So if I say 30 seconds, I can continue to set. Keep it going, guys. Keep it going. You got another 5 seconds, whatever the case is. You can now prod them into continuing the set because there is this psychological component to it. So I hope that makes sense. When I'm doing heart rate type of training, which is generally through most of the workout, but when I'm really, really geared to get them to do their heart rate, get their heart rates into that 75, 80% range, I'm always going to start off with, okay, we're going to do this for 45 seconds, a minute. And just keep in mind, if you want to relate that back to repetitions, it's probably going to take 20 to 25, maybe even 30 reps in some cases, depending on the exercise and the resistance, the load you're using to get an individual's heart rate up to those levels. Now, I don't know about you. If I've got somebody telling me, okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and do 30 reps. Whoa, that's going to do something to my brain. And again, think about it. When you're training people, you let them know, okay, we're going to do 8 repetitions. Okay, psychologically, that's manageable, I think you could say. If I tell somebody, yeah, we're going to do 35 repetitions, it's like, whoa, that's a lot to think about. So that's number 3. Use time sets when you're focusing on, if you're focusing on heart rate training. I recommend it, but it could be that the one workout that you're going through, for instance, you're not as concerned about heart rate training during the resistance part of it, right? It's a quote heavier day, just as a, for instance, you might be focusing on that. And that's why I'm just giving you that as number 3. Number 4, combine your rep counting with timing when doing drop sets. Now, again, this is just a little tip. This is kind of what I like to do. Take your mind off of the standard weightlifting type of frame of mind that I know I grew up with in training, which is I do 3 sets of 10 reps, done. I rest 2. No. That's just not necessary, particularly in like a small group. You can do that with one-on-one training, of course, and you can do it in small group. But my recommendation is that have some fun with this. Let's say you're doing dumbbell curls and you start out with a relatively for that particular individual, a heavier resistance where you can get 10, maybe 12 reps. By the way, I'm talking about heavy and some resistant. I don't really go any lower than about 10. Sometimes I may do 8 repetitions. I just don't like using heavy weight for the average, apparently healthy individual. Okay. So when I say heavy, I'm not talking about triples. I'm not talking about 4 reps, 5. I'm not even talking about 6 repetitions. 8 is generally the lowest I'll ever go with the average, apparently healthy individual. Why? It's just not necessary. Now, of course, that's going to be different for people that are more fit and athletes, okay? But that's an aside. Quite often, what I will do is I'll have my clients, let's say I'm doing dumbbell curls. Let's go ahead. We're going to start off with, I'm going to do drop set. Now, remember, I tell my clients everything right before I start it. Okay, folks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do dumbbell curls. I'm going to superset it with, tricep kickbacks. And then from there, we're going to take a quick break, move over to blah, 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 blah. And I get them thinking already right at the beginning of the set what they're going to be doing. And so in a case like this, I'll say, okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and do some drop sets. I'm going to start out with a relatively heavy weight, and we're going to get about 8 to 10. We'll try to get 8 to 10, maybe a couple of more reps than that. You're going to put the weight down. We're going to grab a little lighter weight, and then we're going to rep that out for 15 more seconds, 20 more seconds, and I'm going to time it. See, now what I'm doing is I'm giving my clients some time to kind of, cogitate on what's going to happen to them here in the next minute and a half. And it gives them something to think about and to focus on. So I'll do rep counts, 10 reps, 8 reps, put the weight down, boom, go right into a 15 to 20 second sort of rep. You can rep it out if you want to use that colloquial type of language. Okay. So you can do drop sets. Remember, the drop set police are not going to come after you if you change things up and you make it interesting and fun and enjoyable. I hope that makes sense. Number 5, always use a countdown during time sets and note the halfway mark. Now, I know that when you're doing 10 reps, if you're doing a rep counting set, okay, we're going to do 10 reps. Keep it going. Come on, you got 3 more, 2. Absolutely do that with rep counting sets. It's during timed sets that you really got to be cognizant of communicating with your clients. I'm just saying this from experience. If you're not talking or cueing or giving some, verbal encouragement during time sets, which could last upwards of a minute, and in some cases they can last more than a minute, especially on particular type of exercises where it takes longer to perform particular repetitions. So if you're doing a 30-second or 45-second set, you want to let your, 3, 2, 1 begin. At least everybody gets started. Go back to number 1 when you're looking at start and finish times. It's almost a way to ensure that clients are mentally, psychologically ready to get going and started. Also, the idea is that you don't just want to tell folks to go and Mary is starting. Joe just got back from drinking water. No, we've got to have some, got some structure when you're doing this. So I will always do a countdown. Everybody come on back. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and do whatever the exercise is for 30 seconds. 3, 2, 1, begin. And everybody starts, bam, I can knock out my timing. And I always give them a halfway notation. I will always say, okay, guys, halfway there. I'm looking at my stopwatch. We're 15 seconds, 20 seconds in. I'm also engaging and watching to make sure that their technique is correct. I'm not sitting there looking at my stopwatch like this the whole time. Of course not, right? Click, go, and then I'm watching and I check. Okay, guys, halfway there. 10 seconds, 5 seconds. The beauty of the time set is that I can then make some modifications in the actual speed and technique or speed technique of my clients. So the idea, keep in mind, folks, is that when you're going through and making decisions, it's not either or. And that's one of the things I want to make sure that I get across here. Don't just use one or the other. Use both. Use them in the same set if you want to. Again, there's a paradigm of thinking. There's a paradigm here in the weightlifting world that says you can only do it one way or the other. It's simply not the case. Determining whether or not you're going to do rep counting sets or time sets, look, it's all up to you. I hope these 5 tips have helped you. If you have any questions, just make a note of it below. If you like this video and our other videos that we do, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We try to do as many videos as we can based on the questions that we receive from trainers that are out there already. Best of luck, and we'll see you next week. Bye.